we're going to return from our recess or our break. I hear a motion to return to open meeting.
I move to return to open meeting.
I have a second. Cave. Any questions, comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed, no. Motion passes 5-0. Next on our agenda is to certify our closed meeting.
I move to certify to the best of each member's knowledge that 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Thank you, Ms. Lord. Do I have a second? First. Any questions, comments?
Ms. Burgoyne, Ms. Cave, Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Lohr,
Yes.
Chair Cross.
Yes. All right, welcome to tonight's school board meeting. We had come in earlier to do Mr. Gifflet's evaluation a little bit earlier, and then we broke and we had dinner, and now we're back out for our session, our public session tonight. But we want to thank all the parents and students tonight that have taken time to come out as we do our awards tonight, and for the public that's come tonight for the meeting. At this time, we will have a moment of silence, so if you'd like to join me with a moment of silence, we would appreciate that. All right. At this time, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance. First thing on the agenda tonight is to recognize our school recognitions of the Brittany Lamb Kelly Cogsdale Character Counts Awards. And the first on our list tonight, one of the principals to do this is Mr. Swaggart. Are you in the room, Mr. Swaggart? There.
Good evening, Chairman Cross. Good evening, Chairman Cross, school board members, and Superintendent Dr. Shiflett. Welcome to East Rockingham High School. Thank you for joining us for dinner. That was much appreciated. I know you have a long agenda. We're going to jump into some character count students. The first person I'd like to call down is Alexander Crissell. If you could come on down. The leadership team at East Rockingham High School chose senior Alexander Crissell as a deserving student for the Brittany Lamb Kelly Cogsdale Character Counts Award. Miss Rebecca Roberts describes Alex as an awesome student who is always humble and kind. She noticed his willingness to push his limits, even if it means placing himself in situations that are sometimes uncomfortable for him. Miss Allstater describes Alex as a quiet and amazing student. In short, Alex is not one to crave the spotlight, but he is one to treat all students and adults at ERHS with respect, no matter what stressors may be weighing on him at the time. Congratulations, Alex. Now I'd like to call down Aaliyah McNair. She's got her team here. The leadership team at East Rockingham High School chose senior Aaliyah McNair as a deserving student for the Brittany Lamb Kelly Cogsdale Character Counts Award. Ms. Matheny describes Aaliyah as a student and athlete who demonstrates outstanding character, no matter where she is or who is watching. She is someone who is respected by her peers, and she effectively encourages others to change for the better. Coach Keys adds she's not only respected by her peers, but also by all the teachers, staff, and administrators at ERHS. East Rock is a better place thanks to the consistently positive daily presence of Aaliyah McNair. Fines? Fine certificate? The leadership team at East Rockingham High School would like to present the Volunteer of the Year Award to Ms. Terry Jones. Ms. Jones, please come forward. She has served the last 12 years as an active member of the ERHS Booster Club. Her efforts throughout the years are much appreciated by students, athletes, and staff. East Rock is a better place thanks to Ms. Jones' always present joy and positivity. When interacting with her, one can not help but smile due to her ever-present smile. Thank you again, Ms. Terry Jones. Right on cue.
All right, next on our list tonight is going to be Riverbend Elementary School Principal, Miss Blair Harper.
Good evening, Chairman Cross, members of the board, and Dr. Shiflett, and everyone gathered this evening. We'd like to recognize two of our fifth grade students this evening with the honor of the Brittany Lamb Kelly Cogsdale Character Counts Awards. These were nominated by our fourth and fifth grade teams and then voted on by the Riverbend staff, and is truly representative of the wonderful young citizens that we have here in our building. So we're going to get started with Mr. Bryce Williams. Bryce, if you'd come forward.
All right, while he's walking down, I'm going to share a few things. Bryce is always doing the right thing. He's a great role model for his peers. He is respectful and well-mannered individual. He is a gentle and kind-hearted person. As a student, he always puts forth his best and remains respectful and trustworthy while setting a good example. Bryce is a caring and sweet young man. He always speaks to you in the hall and around the school, even when he is with other students. He's just an all-around great kid with a big heart. So congratulations.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Now if I could have Nakia Cassidy join us, please. And here are some words that Nakia's teachers have to say about her. I taught Nakia and saw her great all-around character the whole year I had her. She works hard, she's responsible, and she's respectful. She actively sets a good example, leading with her quiet, calm demeanor. Nakia is such a sweet girl and always tries her best to be a good Riverbend citizen. She is an exemplary student who is kind to all. Thank you, Nakia. We can personally speak to that. They get out of the car with a big smile and warm welcome each morning when they get out, and always have a friendly thing to say and genuinely say back, "I'm good, how are you?" And we appreciate their friendly nature and leadership that they bring to Riverbend. At this time, we'd like to recognize our Riverbend Volunteers of the Year, and I believe that is represented today by our East Rock volleyball team, if you all don't mind standing, as well as members of the East Rock baseball team. And if there are any other student athletes in the building today, if you would stand and be recognized. There we go, thank you. So last year, we partnered with East Rockingham High School to promote the importance of school attendance. Playing on the common workout and exercise mantra, never miss a Monday, nearly every Monday morning of the school year, students from a sports team or club would join us over at Riverbend to greet and cheer on our students at the bus loop and car drop-off line as students arrived. Dressed in their uniforms or club gear, and often with one student being brave enough to dress as our mascot, Carl the Cardinal, they created such a positive, fun, and enthusiastic welcome to the week. Our Cardinals look up to these Eagles, and we appreciate the time they gave to support us. We made significant improvement in the area of chronic absenteeism last year, and this partnership definitely played a big part. Thank you to the members of the football, cheer, volleyball, boys and girls basketball, softball, track, cross country, baseball, girls soccer, boys and girls tennis teams, as well as the FFA and Sources of Strength clubs for your time. Also, thank you to the East Rock administration and athletic department, including Molly Smith, along with Riverbend teacher Misty Shiflett, an East Rock parent who helped to coordinate this effort. Thank you all for being excellent role models for our Cardinals.
Thank you, Ms. Harper. I also want to say thank you to all the East Rock students that go over to Riverbend and greet the students in the morning times. I've seen a lot that happen a lot on social media, and it's just really a positive thing you guys are doing and bringing a lot of good cheer and positivity to our students next door. So thank you guys so much for being great leaders here at East Rock. Next on our list tonight is Principal of South River Elementary School, Mr. Kenny Boyers, or I should say the Kenny Boyers.
Good evening. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair Cross, members of the Rockingham County School Board, Dr. Shiflett. Hey, we're here rocking our South River Rangers brand new gear for the year, where we honor the 30 years. One thing that we're not taking for granted is that South River opened its doors 30 years ago in 1994, and we wanted that reflected, and so they used to be the Rangers, they used to be the Rapids, now they're the Rangers. So we've been riding the Rapids for 30 years as the South River Rangers, and all of our students got a shirt and staff, and so that's great for our school spirit. We have some young students we're going to recognize this evening, and Ms. Beagle is going to do the honors for the students, and then I'll recognize the volunteer. But thank you for providing us with this platform where we can showcase exceptional character and role modeling among our fifth grade students.
Good evening. The first student we want to recognize is Logan Roberts. Mrs. Saylor, Logan's fifth grade teacher, has the following to say of Logan. Logan is the type of young man who instantly makes a wonderful first impression on anyone he meets. When Logan's name is mentioned, positive praises always follow. Logan demonstrates remarkable examples of the pillars of character daily. He has a love for helping others, goes out of his way to make his classroom a better place, and is a natural-born leader. Friends gravitate towards the person Logan is as he spreads his light wherever he goes and encourages others to do the same. Just this year, Logan has been recognized by his peers during a special morning meeting segment where he was chosen as a strong representative for trustworthiness. He is led by example as class CEO, also known as Role Model of the Week, and he was specifically chosen to be a morning helper for a first grader needing some extra care and support. Logan continues to be a young man of integrity, always looking for ways to make himself and others around him better, and is so deserving of this honorable recognition. Congratulations, Logan. Our second student we'd like to recognize this evening is Kennedy Tate. Miss Ansell, Kennedy's fifth grade teacher, has the following to share about Kennedy. Today, we proudly celebrate Kennedy as the recipient of the Character Counts Award. Kennedy is a true reflection of all of the characters of Counts pillars. She consistently goes above and beyond to support others, showing genuine care and kindness to everyone around her. Kennedy is a person you can always rely on to do what's right, and her sense of fairness and cooperation enriches our classroom community. She She truly embodies the values this award stands for, and it's an honor to recognize her this evening. Congratulations, Kennedy.
Thank you, Ms. Beagle. At this time, I would like to ask Mrs. Jan Swanson from the Grottos community to come forward. I've known Jan for 2 years, but many of you have known her for a lot longer than that. And so I'm going to read a testimony written by Ms. Courtney Judd, our pre-K teacher. Okay. Okay to cry, all right? About 13 years ago, my former principal, Mark Keeler, came to me and said, I have a friend who had extra love to give, and you have lots of pre-K kids who need to be loved on. Could she volunteer for you? And since then, Miss Jan has been a part of our pre-K family. She comes every week and works with individuals in small groups. She lends a hand on field trips and special event days like Field Day and Ag Day. She donates clothing when needed, books, classroom items, always brings the unconditional love that grandmas give. Jan has taken home items that needed cutting out, and during COVID, when she couldn't come into the building, she sent items in for the kids to use. Staff and students alike are so happy each day that Jan is at South River, and I am humbled by her service and grateful for all the love that she shares with all of us. Thank you. It's been a blessing, Jan.
Wow, it's such a great opportunity or part of our meetings to recognize our children with character counts and also all of our volunteers that volunteer inside the schools. So can we give them one more round of applause tonight before we end? Next on our agenda tonight is the Inspire Awards. The Inspire Award was created for RCPS stakeholders to recognize a teacher or staff member who has impacted their life, inspired their learning, or made a distinct impression on their child. Nominations are accepted from students, parents, student teachers, classroom, volunteers, and community members. Tonight, our first on our list is Miss Katie Bond. I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce this. Bondonk is a parent presenting to Holly Ballas. I'm sorry to mess your name up. I apologize.
This is way out of my comfort zone. Board members. I have a privilege to present this award not just as a parent, but also as a fellow teacher. I substitute at Peakview a lot. So I get to see teachers as teachers, but I also get to see them as my son's teachers. And Ms. Belize is the best teacher out there. She has the best classroom discipline. As a substitute teacher, you gotta, you pick up on that. Where she lovingly teaches kids and encourages them to do their best and be their best selves. She pours her heart into the kids. She goes above and beyond to make sure the kids are learning and are having fun. That's a huge one. She does so much extra to make sure kids understand the concept and they can apply it in their daily lives. Ms. Jadari was there a few weeks ago where they were doing experiments from the roof. I really appreciate that as a parent. Thank you, Ms. Belize. You are the best teacher.
Next on our list tonight is Katosha McCauley, parent, presenting to Michelle Schaefer, kindergarten teacher at McGaggisville.
I would like to take a moment to recognize Miss Michelle Schaefer for her dedication and support in making my son's transition from pre-K to kindergarten a smooth and joyful experience. Ms. Schaefer goes above and beyond for her students, and she always greets everyone with a smile. She treats all of her students equally, and she makes learning fun for her students. My son loves going to school and having her as his teacher. Thank you, Ms. Schaefer, for all that you do for my son and your students.
Next tonight, Mariah Moyer, parent, presenting to Elizabeth Meadows, school nurse at Elkton Elementary.
Hello, good evening. So it's my pleasure to present this award to Nurse Liz. Connor wanted to be here today, but he came home with a migraine, so he's homesick, sorry. So Nurse Liz is absolutely amazing. My son Connor has a rare genetic skin disease called ichthyosis, where he doesn't sweat. She had made sure the temperature of the classrooms have been cold enough for him, and when they were too hot, she moved the classroom to another room. The one time Connor overheated, Nurse Liz did not hesitate to take care of Connor. She covered him in ice packs and did everything she could to cool him off. When all else failed, she called the rescue squad. That day, she called and texted several times to check on Connor and made sure that he had everything he needed. Nurse Liz, goodness, is more than just a nurse at Elkton Elementary. She's like a second mother to all the students. She deeply cares for all the students, no matter what is going on. Her kind and nurturing attitude shows through everything she does. She cares for all the students as if they were her own children. Thank you so much for everything you have done and continue to do.
Give one more round of applause to these teachers and nurses. We're going to take a 5-minute recess break for all those parents or kids who would like to leave at this time, and then we're going to go into board highlights. thank you. Next on our agenda tonight is to go into board member highlights, and tonight I'm going to start with board member Burgoyne.
I will apologize to everyone. These are brand new mics, so we're having a struggle. I think if you just slightly move your head, you all cannot hear anything, right? Yeah. Okay, I'll try not to move. So for my highlights, on 9/11, we did a stair climb, and the students from MTC, law enforcement, and fire rescue came out to do that with us. We also had some members from the sheriff's office, 2 members from the sheriff's office SWAT team. We had Rockingham County Fire Rescue showed up and brought 2 engines, which was really cool. And they did, the firefighters did the climb in their full gear. But before they got there, sorry, I feel so awkward not turning my head. Before they got there, we had 4 of our students from MTC who ended up doing it in their full fire gear, which really, really impressed me. And as I was thinking about it, you know, none of these kids were alive when 9/11 happened. And I was amazed by how dedicated they were. They were committed to wearing their full gear. The other students were committed to just completing it. I will admit I did not complete it. It was hard. And the students just blew me out of the water. They were amazing. So I'm just so appreciative for, and JMU Police Department showed up as well. We did it at Bridgeforth, so that was really cool just out of support. So I'm appreciative for all of our public safety partners who came out and did that with our students. I think that's such an important and good role model to have for them. But it was really cool how dedicated our students were to being a part of that. My other highlight, last week we did last week we did a viewing of an interview with Suzanne Youngkin, with the author of The Anxious Generation, and Mountain View hosted it, and it was a really cool event. Got some really good data, got to talk to some parents and staff about some findings from that book, and so that was just, it made me reflect on myself as a parent, and I'm grateful my kids are still young so I can try to stop doing some of those bad habits that I have. But it was really nice to be able to talk to everybody, kind of get their feedback on that, and to know that so many people have read the book and really are taking that into consideration. So I appreciate Dr. Shiflett for facilitating all of that conversation. I thought that was really awesome. But that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Burgoyne. Ms. Cave?
Well, she stole my 2 highlights,
Sorry.
so. But I will say that Bo Dickinson, our social studies director, he gave a little speech to our students before we started the stair climb. And I get really emotional about that kind of stuff. And one thing that he said that really stuck with me was, it's okay to get emotional when we talk about these things. And I was standing there a hot mess because I'm like, don't make me cry when I'm getting ready to exercise. You know, and it's, you know, because it's what Ashley said, none of these kids were born when this happens, and you feel like not that much time has passed by that there would be students this old that they weren't alive to experience that. And so this was it was put together really quickly, right? Yeah. I mean, the fact that we pulled all of that together, and that he could speak so passionately to our students before doing something like that was just, it was impressive to me, and I appreciated it a lot. And I will say that Ashley and I think we did a really good job, but we got lapped by Chairman Cross. Like, I don't even know how many times. But in my defense, I was having, and I'm just getting ready to put in a plug for our safety director, I was having a full-on conversation while we were stair climbing, right? We were having conversation. He had been trying to connect with all of the board members prior to, a meeting that we're going to have in the near future. And it's so hard to make everybody's schedules jive. And even while doing something that's so special as commemorating 9/11, and all the people that gave their lives that day, like, he was willing to walk with me as a board member and discuss our division. And I just thought that it spoke really highly of him to me. And so I just want to assure our community
that we have done a really good job in picking a safety director. I have not only high hopes and high expectations, but I believe that he is the man for the job. And so I thank you for doing that and all that you've done already. He's just quickly moving into things that I'm like, wow, I didn't even know you started work yet. So anyway, so that was awesome. And I was there for the fireside chat with Suzanne Yunkin and Jonathan Haidt, the author of The Anxious Generation. And that was really good. And appreciated that they did that. And I think that our schools are already experiencing positive effects from implementing phone-free school days. And to put in a plug for Rockingham County, we actually released our policy a day prior to Governor Youngkin releasing his directive to do such, and instructing the schools in Virginia to do that. So I think we are on target, and I'm really pleased with the direction and the speed that we're going in Rockingham County. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cave. Ms. Hurst?
I just want to highlight a luncheon that I went to this past week to Vail, which is the Valley Associates for Independent Living. I was not aware of this organization, but I am just so thrilled that we have an organization like this. They're an organization that is all about promoting self-direction among people with disabilities, and then also removing barriers to independence in the community. So for individuals with disabilities, this is an organization that will help advocate for you, get you peer support. They partner with the schools and do transition services for students who are leaving Rockingham County Public Schools but need additional support. And all around, it's just an incredible organization, and I was glad to be invited and take part in that luncheon and hear about all the wonderful work that they're doing in our county, and in multiple counties. It's really the Valley, truly the Valley, lots of counties. The other thing that they highlighted, and I want to make sure I get this right, they have the Harrisonburg Cardinals, which is a local, and they said ranked 16th in the nation, wheelchair basketball team. I had no idea that we had the 16th ranked in our area, and they have a game, if you're interested, on September 21st at 6:30 p.m. at Horizon's Edge. And the other thing I wanted to highlight, which I'm going to let, I'm really having trouble with this microphone. You practically have to be on it. The other thing, and this is just a plug for the music department, tomorrow at 7 I think, at Bridgewater College, all of our high school marching bands are having an exhibition. It's going to be really awesome. And I believe both Harrisonburg High School bands are also marching bands will be there. So starts at 7 o'clock, and I'm looking forward to attending because I love that sort of thing. So I encourage you to come out and support our local marching bands. I did mess that Vail date up. It's actually September 26th, Thursday, this week. It's Thursday, Horizon's Edge basketball, the Cardinals wheelchair basketball team. First community members. Okay. Yeah. Great things happen in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Ms. Laura?
Thank you. There are great things happening in our community. And I had this awesome full 360 experience this past 2 weeks that I kind of wanted to share with you all. I was able to interview the upcoming 7th and 8th grade officer team and help place the officer team for Elkton Middle School this year. And that was neat to see all the brand new little FFA members. Some of them didn't even have their official dress yet. They were very nervous to speak in front of 3 people, and they were just beginning their journey. And it was so neat to see that, and then contrast it with today. I was able to, my farm actually hosted a group, well, it was the Ag Committee, the Senate and House Ag Committees for Virginia. Secretary Lohr Agriculture Secretary Lohr put that together and had them come out to the farm, and we were able to talk to these delegates and senators from throughout the Commonwealth and kind of explain what ag is. And my middle son, who was a former FFA state officer, did a presentation and knocked my socks off. And I'm mama, you know. A lot of the delegates came up to me afterward and said he did a really great job, and it was because of the training he had through FFA. And I remember what he was like as a 7th grader and not being able to barely tie his shoes or tie his tie and couldn't do it. And the training that we do here in RCPS is amazing, and I'm just so in awe for all the people who contribute to our children, and I am very appreciative to them. And it's across the board. It's not just FFA. And I was able to have a conversation with one of the delegates about that. All of our kids need to be involved in something, because I've been on the board, and I think you guys are starting to see when students come to us for discipline issues, when we ask them, what do you do in school? They usually say nothing. I don't do anything. I don't enjoy anything at school. They all need to be involved in school. They all need to find something they're passionate about in school. And we as parents and community members really need to foster that. And I was also able to attend the Sources of Strength training at Broadway High School in these past 2 weeks, where they do just that. They work with the community, they work with the students to help them, and it's all, I mean, I knew a bunch of the students, but there were some that were from places that I don't necessarily see, and that's the whole point. They get kids from all over the school to kind of pull in, and they plan school-wide events and encourage everyone to be involved in the school. And that truly, folks, is what we need for our students these days. And they all need to be involved. And it was just such a great 360 moment that I got to experience these past 2 weeks, and I wanted to share that with you. So thank you for allowing me to share that.
Thank you, Ms. Lohr. Dr. Shiflett?
So first, I would like to say thanks to Sergeant Kevin Dolphemeyer with Rockingham County Sheriff's Department, as well as other members of the Sheriff's Department, for assisting us with a social media threat last Thursday evening. As Ms. Lapierre and I were trying to host the event live stream with the First Lady, we were also dealing with this. But with their help, we were able to determine this was a hoax, just a hoax. Also, Timberville PD the next day had a really strong police presence at Plains Elementary School. And also just want to say thank you to our principals who had to deal with that, Dr. Todd Johnson at Plains Elementary School and Mrs. Amy Wooters at Hilliard and Mr. Dan Sanders at Broadway High School for working through this well into the evening, trying to get resolution on this hoax, and as well as Dr. Alderfer and Kayla Lapiro as we were trying to communicate with families. And just to reiterate, we take threats such as this seriously, and we will address these threats, and we will enact the most severe consequences possible. This is not a joke. Nobody was laughing Thursday evening. No one Friday morning thought it was a big hee-haw. They were upset, and we're not going to play games with this stuff. So parents, here's a word I will say to you. If you're giving your son or daughter access to platforms on social media, whatever it is, Instagram, Snapchat, doesn't matter, and they make a threat to one of our schools and we find out, we're going to come down hard on them. I want you to know that. Go on record saying that. We're not playing. It's not a joke. And they may say afterwards, well, I was only kidding. It's not a joke. And you'll face severe consequences from, I believe, from the superintendent and the school board, because it consumes way too much of our time trying to work through these hoaxes and to verify them as such. And we're spending all of our resources for something that's just, it shouldn't be happening. And we're not going to deal lightly with those things. On a more hearty, healthy note, I will say that last Monday I was here at East Rockingham and got to watched the unified basketball games that were hosted here last week. And the next game, evening game, will be October the 2nd at Spotswood High School. And so if you have not attended a unified basketball game, I encourage you to do so. After the evening is concluded, you will thank me that I made this recommendation to you. It's very heartwarming to watch the kids, and the band was there Monday night playing, and you know, the cheerleaders, and it was a really great time. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shiflett. I was going to say the same thing. I mentioned the threat that we had at the end of the week, and I want to thank everyone that was involved with that, all the work and everything you put into that as well. And just echo what you said, Dr. Shiflett. We do take it very serious, and we don't want to see our students come before the board because of making a threat like that. I do want to thank Mr. Swaggart, Ms. Strickler, Ms. Eanes, and Ms. Smith for hosting us tonight. Thank you guys for the dinner and the conversations at dinner, and just thank you for all that you're doing here at East Rockingham High School to make this such a great place. So can we get a hand for them tonight as all that you do? Thank you so much. Got a chance to come up a couple weeks ago and see you guys at our lab school. So it was cool to see you and all the work that you're putting into that, and what a great program you guys have this year and continue going forward with that. So thank you for all that you're doing. That moves us on tonight to our action items. And our first on the list tonight is our minutes for the September 9th, 2024. And do I hear a motion for that?
I move to
we
approve the
accept
minutes.
the minutes as presented.
Go ahead. No,
Thank you,
you're
Ms.
good.
Lord. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Burgoyne. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. All right, motion passes 5-0. Next one on the list tonight is field trips.
Chair Cross and board members, I have several field trips for your consideration. Broadway High School, TSA Leadership Academy, November the 15th through the 17th, 8 students, Hartfield, Virginia. Turner Ashby High School, National FFA Convention, October 20 to 27, 34 students, Indianapolis, Indiana. East Rockingham High School, National FFA Convention, October 22nd through the 26th, 14 students, Indianapolis, Indiana. And VHSL, all VHSL field trip activities for the 2023-2024 school year, which includes overnight trips due to regional and state contests. And I hope there are many of those. And I do recommend approval of these field trips and all VHSL field trip activities for the 2024-2025 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Shiflett. Board members, hearing the superintendent's recommendation, do I hear a motion to follow that?
I move to follow the superintendent's recommendation to approve the field trips as presented and all VHSL field trip activities for the 2024-25 school year, which includes overnight trips due to regional and state contests.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Do I have a second? Thank you, Ms. Burgoyne. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed, no. All right, motion passes 5-0. Next on our list tonight is budget amendment for 2024, and Mr. Justin Moyers, you have that.
Good evening, Chair Cross, members of the board, Dr. Shiflett. I want to bring a budget amendment to you this evening. That's for our food service fund. This money allocates additional money for food purchase throughout the year FY24. We served an additional 102,650 breakfasts than the year before, and an additional 82,216 additional lunch meals than we did in the prior year. So this will allocate the additional spending money to wrap up that year. Answer any questions?
How much of this, because I thought that cafeteria was a pass-through, right?
It is.
Can you explain that a little bit?
So the cafeteria fund is self-sustaining. None of this money comes from our operating fund. This all comes from federal revenue, a little bit of state, and then the rest from kids paying for lunches at schools that are not CEP. What this amendment will do is for the overage, the difference comes from the cafeteria fund reserve, which carries its own fund reserve, which we've built up the last years from COVID, and we're just going to take some of that down to cover that for this year.
Do you have an idea how many CEP schools we have?
14.
means that we're covering 14 schools. The federal government's covering that money.
Correct,
And-
the federal does.
Okay.
And there's a complicated formula on what you get per child, and we will be reviewing that this year to make sure that the CP schools are breaking even. Because it's a newer program, and it kind of started when COVID did, when we were getting a lot of federal money, and now CP by itself, we need to make sure that it's self-sustaining.
Any other questions?
Chair Cross and board members, I recommend approval of the budget amendment in the fiscal year 2024 as presented.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion, board members?
I move to approve the budget amendment in fiscal year 2024 as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Laura. I'll second that. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed, no. All right, motion passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Next on the list tonight is policy revisions, and Ms. Becky Tennell, you have this.
Good evening, Chairman Cross, Dr. Shiflett, and members of the board. In June, I brought these policies to you, and we put some of them on hold, and I'm bringing them back to you tonight. So these are policies that have been out for quite some time. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about them.
All of these, maybe I'm out of turn. Are we supposed to wait for a motion? I don't know. I have a question.
Okay.
All of these, I just want to double check, all of these are policy recommendations or changes based on what the Virginia School Board Association recommended to us in June. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
And then I was just going to double check that most, from when we reviewed them in June, what I noticed was most of the changes were just some changes in language. It wasn't necessarily a change in policy so much as just rewording some things.
Right. I think that's the case on almost all of them. I don't remember us really talking about any of them except one, and I want to acknowledge that because you had asked me about the school safety one. And if you want me to pull that one to look at now that we have a safety officer, I think we had discussed on the safety drills, you were concerned you wanted maybe some more meat in that one as far as how often we were doing off-site drills. I could work with Caleb now if you wanted me to go back and look at that one again, but that was really the only one I think we discussed that night.
Which one are you talking about?
EBCB safety drills. We had talked through why the language had changed for the number of fire drills, and I think Ms. Horace had asked some questions about, well, how often do we do off-site drills? And she was hoping that maybe some things might go in policy and not just in practice. So I will admit that I didn't pull that one back out. When we just decided to set on these for a little bit, I didn't go back and look at that one again. But I can if you would like for me to.
My question is, I just want to make sure we're not out of compliance because we review every policy. Like they've got to go through some review
Right.
or update every 5 years.
Yeah, we're not
This
out of
one,
compliance.
I was going to say EBCB looks like we're okay because it was last revised in 2021. So we'd be okay to hold that. But I'm also okay to circle back around if our safety coordinator determines we need to make an adjustment. So
That
I'm
would be
okay to
good.
vote on this one tonight.
Okay.
And then we'll wait and hear from our safety coordinator. What's the other one?
You want to discuss? Can we discuss a couple others? Something to say first.
Yeah, go ahead.
On EB, and this is probably more of a question for you, Dr. Shiflett, and I had emailed it to you earlier, so I hope this is not taking you by surprise. But what's being added by the VSBA is each school building evacuation plan includes provisions that seek to maximize the opportunity for students with mobility impairments to evacuate the school building alongside their non-mobility impaired peers. Is that something we're already doing in our schools? Okay. So this is just language. Okay. The other one, JOB. I'm okay with voting on tonight. I would like for this to be a conversation among the board in the future because there's a few things that I don't know that I'm okay with. I don't know that as a board we would be okay with it, and I probably need some guidance too and some information from Dr. Shiflett. But there's a line in this that says no. Well, we're taking that off, but I think that part's
it's still there, but it says, no questionnaire or survey requesting that students provide sexual information shall be administered to any student in kindergarten through grade 6. I just wonder why it's cut off for the VSBA at 6, and is that acceptable for RCPS, for us to be like, okay, everybody 7th grade and above, it's okay for us to ask sexual questions. I think that needs to be a conversation among our board. So I'm okay to go ahead and vote on it for tonight, but I would really like to see this up for information in the future. And then the last one, GBD, this was a policy that we voted on back in March. It may have been a VSBA policy prior. We took a line out of it that talked about, not verbatim, but the superintendent facilitating visits between school board members and the schools. And we took that line out and made it an RCPS policy. And I think that we've been doing really good communicating with school administrators when we want to visit, and even letting Dr. Shiflett know. And I think that's working out well. If not, you're welcome to say, Dr. Shiflett. But I don't want to move to a VSBA policy on BGGBD. And this was a policy that we unanimously voted on, so it was all 5 board members. So I would be willing to vote on all of the policy revisions tonight, except for this one. And I mean, what are your thoughts as a board? The superintendent's going to come with a recommendation to approve these revisions.
Then just a minute.
I'm prepared to make an amendment to that motion.
Now, Ms. Hurst, did you say you wanted to hold back EBCD as well tonight?
No, I'm okay to go forward with it, and then when we meet with our school safety coordinator,
Okay.
We can bring that back up if we decide we need to.
Okay. All right, so the only one we would be holding off on tonight, well, not voting on tonight, would be the BGGBD.
I think it's GB.
Make an
Oh, yeah,
amendment to
BG.
that.
I did want to note, I read the part that you were talking about earlier. It does say in C, when you were talking about the surveys, one JOB, it does say under C that if we're going to be asking any of that information about sexual stuff, that you all are going to require
30 days.
30 days in writing. So
Yeah.
you do have parent communication there.
Yeah,
I just
I
want to make
saw
clear that
that,
it
but-
wasn't just that we weren't going to,
Yeah.
we were just going to say that if you were older, you had the right to ask anything, but it
Right.
does say that you would give notice to families.
Yeah, I saw that, and my conversation earlier with, I think it was Ms. Hurst and I talking about it, was that not all parents respond to those, and yeah, maybe they should, but those things get lost in communication a lot of times, and I just think just conversation worth having, I think.
Yeah, I've heard it.
Thank you, though.
I've heard in the past parents talking about there being an opt-in for that instead of an opt-out, there being an opt-in. Like if you wanted your child to take the survey, then you can opt them in to take it. So I think it's just conversation amongst the board that we can have concerning that, because this has been a topic of conversation throughout the past couple of years.
Maybe you all can speak to if these surveys that we're talking about are federal requirements or state requirements or just state asks. The reason why is because I know that some of the data, I've got a 10th grader this year, so last year there was a survey that, we got notified as parents, was great. You could decide whether you wanted to, you could review the questions and decide whether you wanted to opt out, but it was my understanding that the state uses that data to either make recommendations for services, to fund local services. I'm not sure, I forget what it was, but maybe you all could speak to the requirements and funding.
So for some of those grants, they use the data to, as you said, to apply for grant funding, or to even if they're seeing a particular trend and maybe a pattern of behavior, maybe then they're talking about, do we need some legislation or what needs to be curtailed? So they're using it, and then in most cases, we as a school division, our schools get that information to digest and to review, to see if there's practices that we need to be mindful of regarding some of these situations. But they are parent permission for those, and probably at the middle school, I've had conversations with previous board members who said, ooh, there's some pretty interesting questions that are being asked. So I think it can just, as Chair Cross said, can be further conversations for the school board. Yep.
Just to be clear, Ms. Tindall, this is on You brought these back in June, correct?
I did. I brought these for information. So they've been out there sort of circulating for a little while, and tonight we were bringing them for action because we never said that we were going to retract them. We just didn't choose to vote on them and bring them back for action immediately like we normally do. We usually do that after 2 weeks, and we just decided to hold on them.
And these have not been changed or edited since they were an information item on June 10th. Is that
No,
correct?
they're the exact same. I mean,
Okay.
these were policy revisions that came out from the VSBA either in February or in May. And so these are the exact same ones that we brought to you.
Okay, I just
earlier.
wanted to make sure that
Mhm.
in the couple months, they haven't changed at all, so
No.
to make sure the community had a
Mhm.
opportunity to look at them.
They
Okay.
have,
And
yes.
And also to add to that, Ms. Burgoyne, is that these are the same VSBA policies that Harrisonburg City and other VSBA members have also approved and adopted upon since June as well. So we're not trying to hide anything from the public. We haven't tried to change any wording in any of the policies. We're not doing anything sneaky behind the scenes. We're just voting on it tonight. So
I had one question about the charter school policy. That one that is required that we have a charter school policy. Is
thank
that
you for
correct?
bringing that up.
Yes, I tried to do some research on it. I'm going to look at Dr. Aldifer and see if he would like to say anything about it. I tried to do some reading on it, and there are legal references there. So
Okay.
when it's my understanding, and the other people in the room can correct me, when there's a legal reference, it usually means that something has come out from the state, from the General Assembly, that says you have to have a regulation.
We have to
So
have a policy on
we
this.
have to have a policy. I think ours was RCPS. Like, we just had our own policy, but then VSBA came out with one. And honestly, we have been trying to move more towards VSBA policies because they're legally vetted. We know they're in line with what the state regulations are. So it's my understanding that, yes, we need to have a policy that in regard to charter schools. I can't speak specifically to what the difference is between what our, like, I just don't know it that deeply, the differences between what we had and what we're going to. You can,
But,
Dr. Aldifer?
but you can say that this is VSBA policies that they created from the last legislators when they met on the laws, correct?
That's right. Yeah, so
Okay.
this, in the policy that we had, which was an RCPS policy,
Yep.
was based, it was 90% or more was VSBA. So there were a few adjustments that had been made by our attorney at the time for that, but it was, the vast majority of it was the same as this particular policy. As she mentioned, we had made a move to adopt the majority of our policies as VSBA in that they've been vetted, they're much more efficient to update whenever they come to you. They have the revisions that we know are based in legal background. So yeah, this policy is actually not that much different. It looks, if you look at it, it has all struck through and then it's all new.
Right.
But if you go back and look at it, that's just because there were enough changes that it made sense just to make it fully a VSBA policy. So it's not something totally different. Again, as she mentioned, this is the same policy that probably 120 other school divisions are using for charter schools.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Burgoyne, for bringing that up, because there is misinformation that's out there on the internet saying that, that we're partnering with charter schools and we're trying to pull money away from public education. That's just not the truth. And these policies have been out there since June. We're approving them tonight. They have been set forth by the VSBA, and many other school divisions that are part of the VSBA have already adopted these policies within their school divisions. Any other questions or comments by board members? All right, Dr. Shiflett.
Chair Cross and board members, I recommend approval of the proposed policy revisions as presented.
Dave?
I could do it if we just want the one
Yeah, just-
excluded, right? I move to follow the superintendent's recommendation to approve the proposed policy revisions excluding policy BGGBD.
Second. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed, say no. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Tennell. All right, next on the list, Dr. Shiflett.
Chair Cross and board members, upon review by the Content Review Committee in accordance with RCPS policy IIABB, I recommend retaining The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, as the book does not contain sexually explicit content as that term is defined in RCPS policy IIABA.
I move to remove The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, as this book does contain sexually explicit content as that term is defined in RCPS policy IIABA.
Second. Any questions or comments?
Can the clerk please reread the
The motion is to remove The Art of Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein, as the book does contain sexually explicit content as the term is defined in RCPS policy IIABA.
clarification that is against the recommendation of the superintendent and the committee? Question.
I think the recommendation comes from the committee, right? You're just relaying the information, Dr. Shiflett?
Yeah, my recommendation is based on the work of the Content Review Committee.
And the motion is against the Content Review Committee, correct?
Correct.
The clarification.
Any questions, comments?
I do. The sexually explicit content can be found on pages 15, 16, 36, 53, 56, 67, 94, 142 through 145, and 228. And I have found that these books, different print dates and different editions, those page numbers will not line up, but I do have those excerpts available. If you so desire to have them, I would release them to the public.
Ms. Cave, I would, if you can, give a copy to that.
I will, and you know what, I'm just going to comment on this book. This book has been probably the hardest one for me to recommend removal, because it does have sexually explicit content in it. It is black and white. But the question that someone posed to me the other day is, would you let your children read it? And I try to never ever look at things through the lens for the public school system of what would I do for my children, because I realize that I would do a lot of things for my children that you wouldn't do, and there's a lot of things that I wouldn't do that you would do, and so everybody's different in that respect. But the question was asked to me, would you let your children read this book, particularly your girl when she gets to be high school age? And my answer to that actually is yes. I would let my child read this book. But our policy is not based on my opinion of what I would let my kids do or what I would let your kids do. The policy is if it has sexually explicit content, it's gone from RCPS. So that's why I made the motion to remove. And I tell you all this because I want you to know that I do deeply think about these things. I mean, I've said that it's near and dear to my heart, but I try to really analyze what I do for the school system, for my constituents, and I always try to act with the children's best interest. So I just wanted to put that out there, that I'm not that person that's always like, oh, it's got sex in it, it's bad, bad, take it out. You know, it's not that. Like, I deeply think about these things. And, you know, I would let my children read this book, but it doesn't comply with RCPS policy. That's why it has to go.
Also want to say thank you for the time you spend reading every book that comes through the committee, and passing that information off to board members as well, because you put a lot of time into this. And thank you personally for doing that. Any other questions or comments, board members? All right. Roll call on this tonight, please.
Cave, Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Lore, Ms. Burgoyne, Chair Cross.
Yes. All right, motion passes 4-1. All right, next on our list tonight is information items, and Ms. Tammy Stone, you're here tonight for the Challenge Program and Accelerated Learners, and I'm excited to hear from you tonight.
It'll probably work better if I turn it on. Good evening, Chairman Cross, Dr. Shiflett, school board members, and community members who are still here. I'm excited to give you an opportunity, to give you an update on our challenge and opportunities that we provide for our advanced learners. So, the first thing is by the numbers, what we have in Rockingham County. Rockingham County has 1,400 challenge students who are served by 8.5 elementary challenge teachers and 4 secondary challenge teachers. I did invite our challenge teachers to come tonight and told them, don't feel like you need to come, but you're welcome to. And I have 5 of them who wanted to come and hear the presentation because they love and support our students so much. If you would
Will you go ahead and call them up and introduce them for us?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
Come on up, ladies. And I will highlight some of their names on some of the others. Actually, I'll let them introduce themselves. But one of the things that's interesting about talking with all of the challenge teachers is they are all so excited about serving their students as much as they can. And they are very passionate about it. And it's exciting to hear their enthusiasm. So.
Good evening. Sure. Good evening. My name is Kristen Iwaniki, and I serve at Elkton Elementary and McGaheysville Elementary.
Hi, I'm Nikki Gardner. I'm at Peakview Elementary and South River Elementary one day a week.
Hi, I'm Krista Miller. I serve at Pleasant Valley and Riverbend.
I'm Heather Cherry, and I'm at Mountain View and Audubon this year, and this is my 17th year in Challenge.
I'm Bobby Arbogast, and I serve John C. Myers in Lacey Spring, and this is about my 20th year in Challenge.
So they're awesome.
Can we give them a hand tonight?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for coming.
Wanted to give a couple of definitions of key concepts and ideas, because what is the definition of gifted and what is the definition of advanced learners? So our program, our challenge program, serves both our gifted and talented students, which make up about 2% of the population. And then we also serve the advanced learners, which are students that have high intellectual ability and who are high achieving, but they might not be in that very top 2%, but they're in the top, say, 10%. We also value differentiation in our division, and we try to focus on that, not just for our gifted students, but for all students. We want to make sure it's a differentiated instruction, and so we try to support that. Both the challenge teachers help serve as resources to the classroom teachers and, for seeking out advice, but they also do pull out instruction as well. So what do we do in elementary school? 3 years ago, we started screening all second graders to make sure we weren't missing any students who are gifted but may not come across that way in the classroom. So we screen every second grader, and then if they have a certain score, then they go on for full eligibility. We also offer it so that any parent or teacher in other years can refer their children to be assessed. One of the things we did do this past year at the recommendation of the VDOE is that we've moved to having 2 referral windows a year. And the reason we're doing that is we had gotten to the point that we were getting some referrals at like 8 to 10 a week, and one of our challenge teachers was spending so much of her time testing students, and she wasn't able to push in and do enrichment groups with her students. So for us to be able to serve our students more, we've moved to testing twice a year. They can refer during those windows. We test, and then we can move on. It's easier to test 15 or 20 students at a time than it is to test one or two. I mean, but you have to give, and they take time. Our challenge teachers also do pull-out instruction for 1 hour per week minimum for all 3rd through 5th grade students. But they also provide enrichment, which I'll talk about. And it was really hard. They all shared all these amazing pictures with me, and I really wish I would have been able to have highlighted all of them, but they do such amazing work in there, and they're so creative in what they come up with. But they provide enrichment in elementary, math, and language arts for advanced learners in 1st through 5th grade. So sometimes, even though a kid has not been tested for challenge yet, although we have had some kids who are, we still provide enrichment for those advanced 1st grade learners and 2nd grade learners to help support them in the classroom. And we even have some students who we offer what's called Beast Academy, which is an online individual math program for gifted learners that we do some with. And then our challenge teachers also provide STEM projects for all students when time allows for them to be able to do that in our elementary level. And for our enrichment, it is centered around, like I said, math and language arts, but there's a couple of things that kind of set it apart. First of all, it's almost always hands-on, and it focuses on problem solving, develop a student's ability to work through and solve a problem, and having them design things using the engineering design process and using other process to help solve through problems. That's kind of our elementary program that we have. These are our 8.5 teachers who serve our schools. We have one half-time teacher who works 2 days a week, and the rest of them are full-time, and they all work in 2 different schools and do a fabulous job. For our middle school program, we offer Challenges of the Mind. It's as an exploratory rotation in 6th grade and as an elective in middle school for 7th and 8th grade. We did do a parent feedback forum last year, and overwhelmingly, the elementary program was praised. They were just overwhelmingly positive on everything that we do in elementary, and the only request they had was they want more. That was the number one, is they want more. So I would think that's kind of a thing that they would love even more. But based on the middle school feedback, we have made some adjustments of things that they would like to see more of. One is we have, in all 4 of our middle schools, gone to cluster grouping in reading and math for 6th and 7th grade. What cluster grouping is that means that there would be at least 5 to 6 gifted students in a block together that could be partnered together to work on a project or work on classwork in a more differentiated group. So that the idea is that our gifted students aren't there to just tutor and help the students who are struggling. They're instead working together as a gifted group and being able to develop their talents. So we did that. We also have created section classes of those Challenges of the Mind sections that only have gifted students in them, so that it is reaching another talent development where you're working with just those students who are advanced. We also have, each of our middle schools has at least 1 or more push-in sections where they can push in to support core academic contents and work with teachers on how to implement differentiation in the regular classroom for the gifted students. A couple of things I want to also highlight for middle school is we have been doing the middle school Kid Wind and Solar Challenge. Last year, we have gone from where we had 1 school who did it, and then last year we had 2 schools, and this year all 4 middle schools are going to be doing the Kid Wind and Solar Challenge. If you remember, our 2 schools that participated last year both won their regional competitions and went on to states, and one of our state winners went on to nationals and placed 1st place nationally. So they are doing very well. We also have middle school 8th grade STEM program for advanced learners in some of our schools. And we always send 2 middle school students. This is always, I would love to send more, but it costs money. We send 2 middle school students through an application project to the Summer Regional Governor's School that's held in Harrisonburg here for a middle school governor's school opportunity. So we have 4 middle school challenge teachers, 1 for each attendance area. They are pretty much 80% in the middle school and 20% in the high school. Their role in the high school is basically to support summer residential governor's school application, Massanutten and regional governor's school application, and advise students as needed with questions. We do have some plans based on the parent feedback and things for middle school this year. One of the things is we've started doing differentiation training in our middle schools. We did one of the training sessions, and the teacher said they wish there was more than 38 parents. You know, we have almost 450 parents of middle school, but only 38 parents returned their survey. So we would like to we think middle school kids are old enough that they should be able to give us their feedback on what they would like to see, similar to what experiences do you want? How do you feel in the regular classroom? What can we do to support you more? So we're working on that survey. It's going to go out to the principals. If you guys would like to see it in advance, you're welcome to as well. But then we're going to send it to the students, and I will go out and administer to them during their advisory time so that I can hit all of the gifted students and get their feedback on what they would like to see in the middle school. In middle school, yes. Well, we have 1,400 total. I know there's about 400 and some, 400 and, I'm afraid I'm giving you the wrong exact number, but approximately 400, yeah. We are going to also, we had a planning day. Our gifted secondary teachers got together and we were working on some different protocols. We visited the Massanutten Regional Governor's School, and we planned out some things based on the parent survey that we do think we want to try. The first thing is since all 4 of our middle schools are going to be doing the Kid, Wind, and Solar Challenge on February 21st, and you guys, we would love to have you attend, we are going to be meeting at the central office. And also, right beside the central office is the JMU's Kid, Wind, and Solar Sustainability Building. And on Acorn Drive, about half a mile from the central office, is a solar farm. And we are going to be hosting our own district solar challenge. And one of the reasons we want to do that is we have so many teams who want to present, which is awesome. But we can only send 3 teams on to the regional competition. And we want them to have as many people to present for and as many opportunities to invite solar professionals in to come in and see those. And it really is inspiring. I know Miss Laura helped at Hilliard last year with ours, and I remember she highlighted it, how much she enjoyed it. So I would highly encourage you to please join us on the 21st if you're available to hear that and see that. We'll have a whole day for those students. It's going to be mainly all day. They're going to have instant challenges that they'll do. They'll have a knowledge quiz similar to we're going to modulate the regional experience and the state experience so that every one of those students who have poured so much energy and heart into these projects has a chance to shine and also see each other's projects. Then we also are going to have our first potential 6th grade field trip for all of our 6th grade gifted students. Our 6th grade students in U.S. history are learning about the colonial era up through right before the Civil War starts. And so we have decided as a group of challenge secondary groups that we are going to take our students to Montpelier and Monticello and have them compare the architectural designs and some of the things that went into planning them, as well as some of the science things along the way. Because Montpelier has one of the oldest, it's called a virgin forest because it's an untouched forest in Virginia. So they'll learn a little bit about the science there. They'll learn about the architecture, learn about the people, Madison versus Jefferson and those things. And their project will be to compare those two and come up with what are the architectural differences and similarities and why are they the same or are different. So this would be an experience linked to what they're learning in the classroom, but definitely enriching. And we're basing that because parents said one of the things they would like is to have more field experiences for their gifted students. So we're going to be offering that as well. Now we're going to move on to high school. So our middle school challenge teachers are 80% middle school and 20% high school. And where they work with the high school is we send 3 to 6 students to the summer residential governor's school. For example, last year we sent a student to the Fine Arts Governor's School for theater. We sent a student to the Agriculture Governor's School, which was at Virginia Tech. And then we sent one to the Humanities Governor's School. We've sent one to every single summer residential governor's school before, but we can only send a maximum of usually 6 students, is what our allotment usually is. And based on applications last year, we sent 3. We also send 32 students who are selected for the Massanutten Regional Governor's School. In high school, one of the reasons we don't spend as much time in high school is it's almost like choose your own challenge. There are many opportunities in high school for students to choose their own path in any subject area. We have dual enrollment and advanced placement courses in all subjects. I don't even know that I even listed the CTE courses that we have dual enrollment credits for, but I know that we have them. And so there's numerous opportunities for students to choose their own challenge. We also have students who amazingly have maxed out on all the classes that they want. So we have students every year who are our gifted students who apply to me and do college level science research and inquiry. So we had 2 students, they actually presented to you last year. One was from both were from Turner Ashby last year. This year, both students are from East Rockingham. And they both won at the science fair, and they were competing against many governor's school. They were competing against the Massanutten Regional Governor's School. They were competing against ones that are further up in the valley, up near Front Royal, and they were also competing against the ones down in Stanton, Augusta. And they're very competitive. So those are our high school programs. That's an update on what we're doing in gifted education and for our advanced learners. And please let me know if you have any questions.
I just want to jump out there and ask, do you feel like we're properly staffed?
Oh, I would love to have more staffing.
Talk to me about it. I mean, that's why we have you here.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm seeing here 1,400 challenged students, and we have less than 9 elementary challenged teachers and 4 secondary challenged teachers.
Right. I would love to see us have at least our middle school gifted teachers be full-time just serving our gifted students. They do serve some regular students as well now because their classes aren't completely full, so they go in and push in as needed, or they will fill them with some other spots. I would love to see us build that program up, and I think by making some edits based on what the students are looking for, I would love to see that happen. I would love to see us have the STEM program in 8th grade in all 4 of our middle schools, not just in 2 of our middle schools. That would be great. I would love to
STEM in all 4?
Mm-hmm.
Right now, it's just in 2.
Mm-hmm. And where it's at, it's amazing to see. If some of you, if you went to Hilliard's last year, they made the pizza oven nights, and they also have it in 8th grade at Montevideo, and they have all advanced students in both. I would love to see our elementaries. You know, we have, so for example, at Cub Run, because we have to split the teachers between 2, and at Peakview, they're serving 75 to 100 kids sometimes, and that's a lot of students to serve. I mean, if you really think about it, gifted education is not that different than special education in the needs. The students are different, and they need more support. So if you would be willing to, we could put a proposal together for what we would like to see. I know these ladies would love that, right?
Absolutely. I mean, this is one of the reasons why we have you come, because we want to hear from you and where the need is at and be able to evaluate that, especially when it comes down to budget.
Right, exactly. And that is from the parents. That's the one thing the parents said, was that they love everything they're doing in elementary, but they would love more. And in secondary, they want more. And so we're trying to do more, but it's very hard to do that with, if you think about it, our secondary, they're serving almost 700 kids over 4 teachers. So, and not even able to develop 100% of their time to that. So that would be something that would be very helpful.
Part of our comp plan, too, we talked about advanced learners, so it's definitely on our radar.
Okay.
I would just like to ask, if you don't mind, one of the teachers said you've been in the challenge for 22 years? 20 years? Would you like to add anything to that? I'm sorry to put you on the spot. If you don't want to, you
Yes.
don't have to either.
Let me pass the mic 'cause
Okay.
I don't like to be put on the spot. But Ms. Cherry is a wonderful speaker, and we've all voted for her to speak for us if
Okay.
needed. So there you go.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
I would like to say that I did get to go a few months ago to Mrs. Cherry's classroom. So impressive. Loved every part of it. So
Well, thank you. I think all of us feel very passionately about the service that we provide for our students, and that this is what our kids deserve and what they need. We are trying very hard to service them in math and reading so that they're able to have some of these enriching opportunities that take the skills and the content that they're learning in the classroom and stretch it even further so that they can really work on hands-on projects that are related to real-world application. And I think all of us would probably agree that if we could have more time with our kids, that would be amazing. Because when you have child after child who, sees you in the hallway in the morning or in the afternoon when they're walking out and ask, oh, do we have challenge tomorrow or do we have enrichment tomorrow? And so many of our kids, that's the highlight for them. We've all heard kids say, the reason I come to school some days is because of enrichment or because of challenge. So we all feel very passionately about servicing our kids, and of course we want to advocate for more time and more service for all of them because they deserve it.
I have a question. As far as your resources that you have, obviously I've seen Mrs. Cherry's room and it's super impressive. She has all kinds of cool toys and, just fun stuff for the kids. Does everybody have that same similar setup? That's what I was thinking. I know she's got the 3D printers and all the cool stuff. I think there's a huge difference from school to school, what type of equipment they have and things like that. And I will say, this is my daughter's first year in Challenge, and that's the one thing that she constantly talks about. I've got an idea. They're building a robot, I think. And I've got an idea for this part of my robot, or I've got an idea for this, and I have no idea. I haven't even met her Challenge teacher. She's new, to Linville, but she's all week talking about Friday has got to get here because I've got this thing that I need to do, and it's really, really cool to see how excited she's excited about everything in school, but specifically always thinking about what she's going to do in Challenge. But if we don't have the same resources, that's definitely something we can look at.
Ms. Stone, would you work together with Dr. Shiflett and maybe put together a time that we could do a work session with you guys to hear from you before we go into budget season? To be able to hear from you?
Absolutely. We would love that. And I think we could arrange a time. Do you want to meet with middle separate from elementary, or do you want to meet with them all together?
I think I'll leave it up to you
Okay.
to choose what we should do, but I would definitely.
I don't think you'll find anyone more passionate about that, and it's such a pleasure. I mean, I volunteered to work with them, and I love working with them, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Stone. Any board members who have any questions? All right. Ms. Stone, our Challenge teachers, thank you so much for showing up tonight, and thank you for taking the time to speak to us as well. We appreciate your time. Dr. Aldifer, you're coming next, and we're going to talk about accreditation and SOL reports. So thank you for bringing this report to the board as well tonight. I know it's getting a little late, but we're excited to hear from you.
Are you? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah,
No,
I'm like
with
after
this we are.
I'm like come after Challenge, ready for the
Ms.
buzzkill.
Horst said this is her jam.
All right.
If you need to get up and take a restroom break, please get up and take it. But we're excited to hear from you on this.
Chairman Cross, members of the board, Dr. Shiflett. So I am going to be doing a presentation tonight around accreditation and SOL assessments. Before I get started, I will say that the accreditation information I'm sharing with you is preliminary. So we haven't actually gotten the official accreditation report, although we do expect it to be the same as what we have now. But I just want to be sure that's clear, and if there's any media here too, I want them to know that this is not official. This is preliminary, okay? So the title of the presentation is Going for the Green, and I want to provide some context to that. So at the beginning of the year, Dr. Shiflett had outlined 3 priorities for the school division. One of them was going to be visibility. Again, this was for division and for school leaders, just being visible, being present in schools and around. A second priority was around high expectations for student behavior, building cultures in schools that are high in support and structure and accountability related to student behavior, and also academic achievement. And that's where this title about going for the green, and I think the reason why we use that title will become self-evident as we work through the presentation. So as far as accreditation, the first part of the presentation will be only on accreditation, and then we'll talk about where that comes from, which is typically around SOL tests and chronic absenteeism and some of those types of things. So the accreditation reports will have a variety of groups that are going to be evaluated, or parts of academic achievement that are evaluated. So there's English and math and science, which is for all students, so how they perform for all students, and then there are achievement groups or gap groups, and you can see listed in your packet what those groups are, right? So Asian, Black, economically disadvantaged, English learners, Hispanic, multiple races, students with disabilities, and white. So those individual groups are broken down and are evaluated for how they're performing. And then we have chronic absenteeism, which is students who miss more than 10% of their the school days. They are considered chronically absent, so we evaluate that. And then for high schools, there's ratings on graduation and dropout rate. So those are the groups. The next slide, information provides what the levels are. So green is good, okay? That's where we go for the green. Green's good, red is bad, right? So we want to be green as much as possible there in the go for the green that Dr. Shiflett had mentioned. So I'm going to provide some context for this, although there's quite a bit of numbers, and there's also some nuance that is sometimes even confusing for us when it comes to whether schools are in green, yellow, or red, okay? But generally speaking, if you are in the green, that means that the students' average pass rate was over 75%, 75 or higher in English, and then over 70% in math and science, okay? If you are in the yellow, that means that the average pass rate on SOL tests, et cetera, would have been 5 points, within 5 points of that. So 70 to 75 in English, 65 and 70% in science and math, all right? There's also chronic absenteeism. At level 1, that means you're under 15% of chronic absenteeism. And then for yellow, that would be between 15 and 25%, okay? And then level 3 is greater than 5% below that benchmark, which 75 again. So it would be below 70 for English or reading, and below 65 for science and math. And then, or over 25% chronic absenteeism. So all that to say, that's all true. And then on top of that, as if it's not, can't be confusing enough, there are ways to get to level 1 if you reduce your failure rate by at least 10%. So let's say that you had a 60% pass rate, right, 1 year, and then you reduce that by 10%, which is 6 points. If you scored or had an average of 66 or 67%, you would be considered level 1 because you reduced your failure percentage. Okay. Same thing with chronic absenteeism. If you reduce it by more than 10%, so if you were at 25% absenteeism, chronic absenteeism, and you reduce that by 3%, you would be in level 1. So you just have to reduce it by that amount. Okay. So anyway, that's just a little bit of a breakdown of how we get the levels that we do. Okay, so now there's going to be some good news, and there's going to be some areas of growth that I'm going to talk about. okay? So the first thing you're going to look at in the next slide is an accreditation report that is based on the 2022-23 school year, so not this past year, but the year before that, okay? So 2 years ago, if you will, okay? So from the assessments in 2023. And in this list, you can see there's quite a bit of red and quite a bit of yellow, okay? Again, we don't like red and yellow. We like green, right? So we were not thrilled by that, by the amount of red and yellow that was listed there. There were 14 areas where we were in level 3, and there were 30 areas where we were in level 2. Moving to this year, so based on the 2024 assessments, we have significantly more green, right? So we would have reduced the number of level 3 indicators by 10. So we went from 14 to 4, and the level 2 indicators dropped by 11 from 30 to 19. Okay, so this is good, right? So we're moving in the right direction. We are getting more green on that board. So when we talk about going for the green, this is one of the areas we're talking about, right? We're trying to get this board, if you will, okay? We want that to be all green in the near future. So that's the direction we're headed. So that's one way in which we measure this idea about green, but it's not the only way that we do it, okay? Which I'll talk about in a second. Now, one of the things I want you to look at, if you will, if you look back at this, the 2023, the last column over there, you see tons and tons of red and mostly yellow over there, a handful of green. That was chronic absenteeism, all right? So that was really tough for us. We had really, really poor numbers. We were not alone. That was across the state as far as lots of kids that were chronically absent. We dove headlong into that. Our schools committed themselves to that. Marcy Williams committed herself as the attendance truancy person for our division to really tackle this, but really our schools, along with Marcy, but our schools really took the lead in that and really embraced this. And as a result of that, you will see we went from all that yellow and red to no yellow and red in chronic absenteeism. And I give a lot of credit, again, to our schools, and I think it is also a testament to the fact that when we identify something as a priority, it gets done, right? So there's a list here in your packet of the percentages from 2020, 22, 23 of chronic absenteeism and 2023, 24. And then in the last column, you can see the difference. And every school improved, right? In some cases, significantly. As a division, we cut it almost in half, right? Or by 9 points, by 80% or something like that.
How close, sorry to interrupt you here, but how
No
close
problem.
are we to before COVID, pre-COVID on that?
We still have a ways to go. I don't know the exact, what the amount we had from chronic absenteeism. It was under 10%, and we are now at 12%. So it would still be, we still have a little ways to go. I can't tell you I know the exact number, but this is significant improvement, right? So I'm very pleased with that. We're all pleased with that progress that we've made, okay? So the accreditation, this will be the last slide of the accreditation piece, and then I'll just talk about some SOL information and data. So as far as accreditation, all of our schools are accredited, okay? So they're all listed here. We do have 2 schools that are accredited with conditions, okay? And this was specifically related to science at both those schools, at Elkton Middle School and in Lacey Spring Elementary School. I will say that science is a bugaboo because, as I had said earlier, the calculations of these things can be complicated. They are further complicated by the fact that in math and in reading, you can get some credit for growth. For if a kid, their 3rd grade year, they perform at a certain level in reading, and then their 4th grade year, they jump up significantly, even if they don't pass. In some cases, they will get credit for that. So that improves the scores and the pass rates. In science, that's not a possibility because they only take science one time in elementary and one time in middle school. So there is no year-to-year progression. So it's a heavier lift for them to reach that in in science. So that would be one of the reasons why that's become an issue. If you go back and look, I'm not going to take all the slides back to there, but we had a number of schools, quite a few that had science as the issue in 2023, and that number's reducing, but we did still, 2 of our schools remain needing to have are accredited with conditions because of that. Okay, any questions about accreditation? And then I'm just going to show a few slides related to SOLs in general. Okay, so here's another way in which we look at this going for the green. Okay, so this slide shows the year-over-year changes across the division in scores from one year to the next. So you can see, again, if I didn't put the key here, but I'll explain it to you. So essentially, if you have over 3 percentage points of improvement from one year to the next, that is a dark green. If you have between 0 and 3 points of improvement, that's light green. 0 to 3 points of regression or poor performance, that's yellow. And if you have below 3% or so, 4 or more, lower than the year before, that's red. Okay, so that gives you a sense. If you look at that, you can see the majority of those, and if it's white, that means it was just the same. Okay, it was the same from one year to the next. So if you look at this, you can see that we made, and this makes sense, right? For the accreditation report, we got more green. Our scores went up, generally speaking, not 100%, but generally speaking, they went up. So we saw improvement as it relates to year-over-year scores. Okay, so that's good. That's, again, going for the green that we're trying to do. The last piece where we talk about green is how we compare, Rockingham County compares to the state average. Okay, this is key for us. We take a look at it and we say, how do we in Rockingham County compare to our neighbors and to other folks across the state? And that's where this slide comes in, the second to last slide. And this is a slide that, again, I said that there's areas for improvement. This shows you where the areas for improvement are, right? So you can see, generally speaking, at the high school level, we are performing higher than the state average, okay? The middle school level is a little mixed. At the elementary school level, we are performing below the state average. I do believe that there are some reasons for that, okay? These are not excuses, but they are reasons, right? And one of them is that we have put a tremendous amount of effort and energy into literacy, just teaching kids how to read, and spending less time trying to drill them into the SOLs and saying, this is how we're going to just get you ready to pass this SOL. We want you to learn how to read. We believe that that is going to pay dividends down the road. As kids can read, they will perform better, et cetera. At the same time, those scores and those percentages below the state average are not things that we feel comfortable with, right? So that's an area that we need to see improve, and we've talked about that with our administrators as well, okay? So how are we going to go about doing that? I'm going to share here not an exhaustive list of things that we're doing, but these are some of the types of things that we are putting together to address this area and try to, again, go for the green. So each of our schools, they have a school plan that they develop every year, and they have to carry out in their schools. That is something that they share with us as administrators. Any school that has an area that is either a level 2 or level 3, that will be one of their focus areas, right? So they are focusing on that very deliberately. We are working on intentional alignment of knowledge and skills with SOLs. Again, this was something that we had sort of moved away from, particularly at the elementary, if not moved away from, just put on the back burner as we were just really focusing on this phonics instruction and literacy with letters. This is something we're going to have to just bring back, particularly at the upper grades, right? So upper grades meaning 3rd, 4th, and 5th. That's where the SOL tests are administered, right? So kindergarten, 1st, and 2nd, they're not taking SOL tests, but upper grade elementaries are. Continue focus on literacy with the emphasis on reading comprehension. So we're not doing away with our focus on literacy, but we are incorporating elements and really direct instruction related to comprehension. more periodic assessments and analysis using Mastery Connect. So Mastery Connect is some software where students can basically take SOL-like tests, and then we can review their results on that. What did they do well on? What did they do poorly on, to help diagnose where they need some additional support. We have unlimited after-school tutoring. This was part of the all-in plan through the Youngkin administration a couple of years ago. This is the second year of this all-in. Essentially, we have told them that there's no restrictions. We used to give them a budget and say, this is how much you can spend on after-school tutoring. We've taken that away, and whatever they spend, Justin Moyers has to pay for, right? So, and we have the funds that came to us through Youngkin, Youngkin's administration.
Have you seen
to
an
do that.
increase in tutoring, or are you utilizing that or not?
Absolutely. Like, I don't know, Justin, threefold maybe from 2 years ago to last year. It comes out of my budget, and it exhausted my budget and more, right? So Justin told me that he would cover me, and he had to cover me. Yeah. So yes, it went up, I think 3 times more probably than it did the year before that. Yep. And lastly, monthly meetings to monitor progress towards school goals. So I meet monthly with each administrator, each principal, and one of the topics of our meetings these are individual meetings, and one of our topics is to review how things are going, what they're doing, what their plan is, what kind of progress are they seeing, what sort of data do they have to support the elements of and the goals that they have set out in their plan. So again, we are working toward this green, going for the green, if you will, and we have a plan for that, and it has been set by Dr. Shiflett as a priority for the school division, and it's something that we speak with them about regularly. So happy to answer questions you have.
Dr. Alderfer, I see that here on the slide before the last one, it goes from 3rd to 8th grade, but there's nothing on high school. Is there a reason why you don't have anything with high school as well in there?
The end of course, that's high school. Is that what you mean? The one that has down at the bottom, English reading.
2024 SOL scores.
Yeah, the ones down at the bottom.
Okay.
And actually, I appreciate you bringing that up, because I did mean to make a note about that. So in the high school, they actually give significantly more SOL tests than this. These are the tests that most students in the state of Virginia take. Okay, so depending on your school division, you may give world geography to some kids, or you may do world history as the test that they take. So for instance, if you look at our world history scores, they look horrible because we had like 20 kids take it who were the ones who failed world geography, right? Where another school division, they may do world history as the course that they want all of their freshmen or sophomores to take. We do that in world geography, and this year, for the first time, we did that using a local performance assessment, and our scores on that were in the 90s, right? So they were very, very good, right? But you'll see here, English reading, every school division in the state kids have to take that English reading test. Algebra 1, then they also need to take either Algebra 1 or geometry. So when they get into high school, if they took Algebra 1 in middle school, then they will take the geometry test in high school. If they did not take Algebra 1 in middle school, then they will take algebra. But the majority of our kids take the algebra test as their test.
Can you dig a little deeper into that, what you just said about world geography in the high school level, not having to take the SOLs? But
correct, yeah. So they do not need to take a multiple choice SOL test. It's a performance assessment that essentially they do it 3 times during the school year, and they have to essentially do a kind of a written or they're performing something, right? They're actually writing something out and doing a project, and that then gets submitted to be scored, as opposed to just doing multiple choice tests. So this past year was the first year we did that, and our performance on that was very good. Students who did not pass that, who did not get a passing score on their performance assessment, were required to take the SOL test. But that was only a small percentage of our students. Maybe 15 to 20% needed to take the SOL test.
Who gave the scores for, they turn them into their teacher?
So
That has to be
they are
submitted?
collective. So the teacher does not score their own students, but it is our staff and RCPS that will score the performance assessment. And there's a rubric that is followed by that. But they're not, the teacher doesn't get to, I mean, the fox doesn't get to,
Who is
guard
it?
the hen house.
Who
The
does?
other social studies teachers. So other social studies teachers would rate and grade the performances, score the performances of other students, not those in their class. And it's anonymous. They don't know the names or anything else. It's all confidential. Any other questions?
Said Miss Hurst, and she said, "I don't have nothing right now."
We're in the process of working on the comprehensive plan. Academics are of great importance
Sure.
here.
Mhm.
What kinds of things does the division need from us to help out with this?
That's an excellent question, right? I mean, so the thing that is going to have the biggest impact is having highly qualified teachers, right? So class sizes are going to matter, right? So right now our class sizes look pretty good in the middle school, area. What we've done teaming in middle school, I think they are well positioned. And again, you need to have reasonable class sizes at the early elementary level. What we see is that we do have class sizes at the elementary in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade that would be in the low to mid 20s in many cases, and that is a lot of kids when you're trying to get this type of individualized attention for those kids. So we will likely need some additional tutoring money next year because we're not going to have the same unlimited funding for that from the governor's plan. So that would be another area that we would focus on. But yeah, that's what that would be the area that I think just a lower class size for that.
Lower class sizes versus more literacy assistants, as in like right now our practice is
yeah.
literacy assistants in K and 1, expand that to 2, 3, or hire more teachers?
So it's a tough question, right, to answer, because I could line up our principals and ask them, and I would probably get 15 different answers from our elementary principals too, right? So do you focus on that, on the literacy in the early grades, so they can read when they get to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and they're way better prepared to be able to pass that test? Or do you provide that intervention when they get into 3rd and 4th grade, right? I think that, again, I personally think that we probably need to be able to focus at that 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. I think that we have a pretty good handle down at the younger elementary levels. The issues that we have down there sometimes are just, you need the supervision. You have a kid who's kind of off the rails or whatever, and we have strong starts and some other things, but that can be a real challenge as well.
Sorry. Would we be able to get the test scores from World Geography for the last year that we did it, the traditional SOL tests?
Sure.
And was it 23, 24 that was the first year we
Correct.
did the
23, 24,
performance-based assessments?
23, 24 would have been the first year we did the performance-based, right? So the year
Did we
22,
get those
23.
results
Yeah, we have those results.
from
Yep.
that year and the year before?
Sure. Yep.
Thank you.
Could you add to that one?
Like 2019.
Yeah, maybe 19, 20.
Well, 1920 we wouldn't
18,
have.
19, I'm
18,
sorry.
19 would be the. So so 18, 19. You mean for world geography or for?
Yeah, for what we're doing at the high school level.
Yep. Okay. And then Ms. Cave, you had asked for from 2022, 20, like the comparison of the,
However, I mean, if it's something simple as just
Yeah.
pulling a number, maybe just do every year except for the 19, 20 year. It's a lot of work. Just do.
it's not, it won't be hard. I have Cheryl Eastep can help me. Fine. Yeah, that's okay.
Any other questions? Thank you for, will you, last thing will you send this out to all the board members? Hard to see on some
Sure.
of the
Yeah,
slides.
yeah.
Are
I'll send it to you.
people over 40.
Yeah,
Are you over 40, Miss Bergoy?
Can you send
Okay.
it to Ms. Gelkison? Thank you.
Thank you tonight for.
Sure.
Anything else? All right. Thank you, Mr. Oliver. That concludes our information tonight and will lead us into public comments. We have speakers, and the first one is Justin McCann. Just to let you aware that after you have 3 minutes to speak, at 30 seconds you'll hear a ding, and that just makes you aware that you have 30 seconds to wrap it up. So, thank you. Come on up.
Hi, good evening. Can y'all hear me okay?
Now we can.
All right. So my name is Justin McCann. This is my wife, Maggie, and our neighbors, Kim and Carol Cottrell. So we have students in first and second grade at John Whelan Elementary School. We're here tonight to express some concerns about ongoing bus safety that's been unresolved since August 20th of this year. This issue arose when the school bus route changed for the first time in many years, causing our children to walk around a blind curve, cross the street twice, and navigate an area that's completely out of view from our homes. The route lacks a sidewalk or any safe walking path, falling short of the standards set by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. While we understand that as parents we must accompany our young children to the bus stop, this requirement does not eliminate the serious safety risks involved. We've communicated extensively with the Transportation Office as well as the Superintendent's Office, who've acknowledged the concerns but have not taken any action to address them outside of walking and driving the route. One of the compromises proposed was that our children walk double the distance to an intersection 9 houses away, where we have a clear line of sight from our home. While this would have been an acceptable compromise, it was immediately dismissed upon discovering that 2 registered child sex offenders reside at that intersection. This leaves us back to square one with our children forced to navigate the dangers of a blind curve where close calls have already happened as vehicles park on both sides of the streets, forcing us to walk into the road when passing them. Despite repeated discussions with transportation, it's been suggested that our concerns are merely out of convenience, yet it's overlooking the fact that our children are exposed to significant risks, including vehicle speeding, crossing lanes, and rolling through stop signs. That issue was witnessed firsthand by the Superintendent's Office when a Town of Bridgewater maintenance vehicle rolled through a stop sign. We understand the Superintendent's Office wanting to support the transportation's decision, but it was acknowledged in an email from the Superintendent's Office stating, I quote, "As your children grow older and they can walk to the bus stop alone, we will have to make some adjustments because you would not be able to see them get onto the bus from your home." This highlights one of the very concerns that we're raising here today. We're not asking for the bus route to revert to its previous route. We are just asking that there's a minor adjustment to the current route to make an additional loop that would safely pick up our children closer to home, avoiding both the blind curve and the intersection near the child sex offender's residence. This adjustment was proposed to both transportation and the superintendent's office and ultimately denied. This would only add 1 minute and 3 seconds of driving time at 25 miles an hour. We must ask, is this brief addition of time and minimal increase in fuel cost not worth the safety of our children? We regularly observe buses idling for extended periods when unnecessary, suggesting that efficiency alone should not outweigh the imperative to protect our children. We respectfully urge the school board to assist us in ensuring the safety of our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McCann. Thank you for coming tonight and speaking to us. I appreciate it. Next on the list is Sandra Parks.
Can you hear me? Oh, now you can hear me. Good. Yes, my name is Sandra Parks. I'm a retired school librarian with over 30 years of experience in working with children and literature. I would remind you I'm also a national board certified teacher, so my qualifications in speaking on this topic are sound. This is Ban Book Week, where we celebrate not the banning of books, but the rights of free people to read freely, and the protections that our democracy provides or should provide against censorship. For over 20 years with my high school and middle school students, I would teach a lesson for Ban Book Week that celebrated the reconsideration process and how that protected their First Amendment rights. Kids understood that not every book was right for them, but all kids agreed that they deserved the right to choose. We talked about how books are evaluated, not by passages or phrases taken out of context, but by the book as a whole. It's not accurate for Rockingham County, though, as this board has allowed a select few voices to decide what all children can read based on those passages out of context. The effects of a policy that was adapted last May, after immediately banning over 50 books that some anonymous person supposedly complained about, is now apparent. While the policy created a content review committee, this board first limited their ability to make thoughtful recommendations with an exceptionally narrow definition of sexually explicit, which the Virginia Code explicitly says should not be applied to library books. That definition actually refers to what state employees shouldn't view on state computers and has nothing to do with reading or literature. Tonight's discussion just proved how the narrow definition works against the best interests of the kids by banning the art of racing in the rain. And then after that review committee spent countless hours reading and discussing these books, those recommendations were summarily dismissed for 6 books with just recitations of page numbers. No discussion of the book as a whole, theme, purpose, literary quality, just page numbers. Now, the DNR reporter commented that no one from the public spoke for the book, but that's not true. The review committee spoke for the books, but their work has been ignored. Members of the board have discouraged other comment by not answering emails, by refusing meetings, by moving public comment to after any action items, and by not posting documents ahead of the meetings in a timely fashion. And besides disregarding the work of professional educators and community members, the board's not following what's known about reading in children. It's well established that the way to get better at reading is to read. And it's well known that young people will read more when they can choose their books and can access books relevant to their world. Sometimes their world contains tough things. Rockingham County's extensive notification systems for parents about what their children reads. This board assumes extensive power over what every child reads, and our kids deserve much better than the censorship that you all are providing.
Thank you, Ms. Parks. Next on the list is Sandy Stump.
Hello? Hi, my name is Sandy Stump, and I'm here as a parent legal guardian of a second grader at Folksrud Elementary. I am an employee of JMU. I work for the president of Research, Economic Development, and Innovation, and I'm also a veteran. So with that, part of what I'd like to say in regards to the incident with the school the other day and the threat, I appreciate the emails that I received from the superintendent. I also greatly appreciated the one that I got from Caleb Bailey. Also, the law enforcement, everything that was done to take care of it. With that being said, there's a couple things that I'd like to address with this. One, I would like to see some recognition for the student that shared the information. I want them to be proud of the fact that they came forward. And that they shared it not only with their parent, but then it was shared from there. I understand that this was, in what you said, the words a hoax, and this is not going to be dealt with. But my question is there going to be criminal charges in this? Because I certainly feel like there should be. Whatever their intent was, to me, it does not matter. The fact is that it scared thousands of people. One of the other things that bothered me when I looked at it was, Folks Run did not have any extra protection the next day. And if there was a second person involved, my military mind is sitting here thinking, okay, I know these schools are protected, I'm going to hit the others. And I see the schools being the most vulnerable in the morning and the afternoon, because that's when the doors are open, the buses are arriving, the kids are arriving, there's parents. So, you know, I feel good during the day that the school, they lock the doors, that they do buzz everyone in, but I think there's got to be a bigger picture when we're looking at the security of this. I mentioned JMU for a reason, and that's because we have a Valley Scholars Program. I don't know if you're aware of it, but they work with 8th grader through their high school graduation, and they will actually pay for their 4-year education. We just had our first set of children that just graduated from that. One other thing, you know, we have a constant problem ongoing with bullying and fighting. In Augusta County, they do a thing that's called CHINS. It's about children in need of services, and these kids are brought before the court. And I think if we did more of that with these children, even starting at elementary age, just sitting in that courtroom in front of a judge with the parents having to do it, it's going to put the parents on the spot, but it also puts the child. And I don't know, I know I get nervous going to court, so I think that it would be a good way to start deflecting and start ending some of this bullying and fighting that's going on.
Thank you, Ms. Stump. We do in Rockingham County have a CHINS program. Yep, we do. We've had it for a long time. Dr. Shiflett, is there any extra information that you can share about what happened that day? A lot of times we can't share a whole lot of detail because it's a juvenile possibly involved in those things. I have shared with Dr. Shiflett that much information that we can share to be transparent to the public and to parents, then I want to do that. So anything else that you can share, Dr. Shiflett?
So I will share that in conversations with the Sheriff's Department, I believe there will be charges pressed, but that's outside of our realm. School board doesn't do that, and cannot share the student's name or some of those things as well because of some protections. But I will go back to my comment from earlier. It was a hoax, and there wasn't any intent or anything that the student was planning or calculating. It was purely a hoax, you know, a prank. It was a terrible prank, terrible hoax, but there wasn't any reason to believe there was going to be any threat to any of our schools in Rockingham County Public Schools. And yeah, but I hear, but you bring up some good comments about, you know, places and times when we're vulnerable, and that's one of the reasons as the board worked to hire a director of school safety and security, Mr. Caleb Bailey, to help us find ways where we can be better to protect our students. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stump. All right, this leads us into our final stage here is school board comments, and I'll lead off with Ms. Jackie Lohr.
I just want to thank everyone for hanging with us and coming out tonight. Do we have any students here tonight? Are you guys students over there, or are you JMU students? Yay, well, I'm glad you've joined us for this. I believe actually, and thank you guys for coming, I believe actually we've eliminated our requirement for high school students to come to our meetings. Have we not, Dr. Shiflett?
That is correct. They're not required to come to a meeting. They're more than welcome to come. We love to have them. But we have asked our U.S. government teachers to find a meeting that's been recorded that they can show to their class and then have conversations in their class. Because it also helps if you have a class of, let's say, 20 couple U.S. government students and you want to talk about a particular meeting, it makes more sense for all students to see that meeting. And the way it previously operated, students would pick and choose. So if you wanted to talk about the meeting tonight, maybe half your students were here and the other half were not. So this way they can say, here's a meeting, we're going to take a look at it in class, and then we'll have conversations and some dialogue about the meeting.
I think that's great. Thank you guys for making that change, and that's a great way to use the technology that we're having, that we have today. Another question I've been presented with was in relation to that, or similar to that. We've eliminated the community service requirement for high school students. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, and we are replacing that with Adulting 101. I believe that's the language, Adulting 101. And we're making that mandatory. So if students miss that particular day of Adulting 101, then they'll have to make that up. But that's an opportunity where students are learning some adult skills and trying to prepare them for the real world. And maybe at some point we can have a presentation about what all the actual skills that they're learning on that particular day. This was a partnership, I believe. Was it with Rockingham County? Was it with the Sheriff's Department? Or yes, in DSS. So it was sort of, they came to us and said, hey, we have this idea, and we tried it last spring, and I think it was pretty well received.
And that's across the board in Rockingham County Public Schools, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Hurst?
Nothing here. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Cave?
I don't know that I did have questions, but I do now. The Adulting 101 replaced community service. What were they doing for community service? Like, where did they go for that?
I think anywhere they wanted to go and volunteer and do some.
Could have been a neighbor mowing the yard, or
Yeah, could have been any number of things.
who leads the Adulting 101? Is that led by the teacher? Is it done out of the classroom?
Done out of the classroom, but they do it in the school, but
So we will do a whole presentation on it at some point, but essentially they went to each of the 4 high schools, and it was coordinated to bring in community people. There was a person there about fire safety. The Sheriff's Department did a presentation on legal updates on what you need to know as an adult, right? What happens whenever you get pulled over? What happens when you something happens in the legal world, right? So those types of things. There was a rental agency, like a realtor that came and talked about renting, like if you're going to rent, what types of things do you need to be doing with that? How to change a tire was one of the things, right? I mean, so there was a variety of things that kids could sign up for. So they got to choose from a list of these things, and they went to the ones that were most interesting. There were a couple that were required that we expected all of them to attend. So that was the first year, and then we're going to do it again. It's just for seniors. Yeah, it's not.
That
for
was
the
my
others.
next question.
Just for seniors.
I think community service is good.
Community service is
Couldn't we
hard
do
to
both?
enforce, right? And it's also, it's difficult if you don't drive, right? And your parents maybe don't have the ability to get you where you need to go.
Is it just one time though, like one assignment, like you?
There was, I don't remember how many hours it was. I thought it was 10 hours maybe or something. I don't recall the percentage. 15, okay. Yeah. So we found that last year it was both adulting, they did both, and we felt like the adulting piece was better time
Yeah,
spent.
I mean, I think it's great what you just, I just hate to lose the community service. I think it builds character, but absolutely, I love the Adulting 101. I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
We can do a presentation on that. It's in more detail.
Thank you. Is there Dr. Shiflett, a public meeting on the Elkton Elementary School renovations that's coming up soon? Feel like it's October.
So Steve will be coming forth at some point to get some bids, put that out to bid. That will be the first phase of that process.
Okay, 'cause
So I don't know.
Okay, because it's being, the PTO, it's being advertised as a public event. Is that okay? Is that, okay. Okay. And I just know because there are several people interested in the Elkton Elementary. I mean, we've gotten emails, and of course I see people in public, and so I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be like descending upon a meeting that we weren't welcome at.
When do you anticipate sending that out for bids? Okay.
then I just wanted to thank you, Dr. Shiflett, for your comments made during board highlights regarding the threats the threat last week. And one thing that you mentioned was that, you know, so much of time and resources were spent. And I would also just add to that to say, it greatly disrupts the learning environment for the day. I mean, obviously it upsets parents, but the whole county was like feeling the effects of it, and parents were scared, and, and students, obviously, but, and understandably. But anyways, I just wanted to thank you for what you said regarding the hard stance that this school board will take with those types of things. I think what you said very well. And so I thank you for representing the board in that matter. I think that's all I have for the night.
Thank you, Ms. Cave. Ms. Bergeloin?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Ms. Bergeloin. Dr. Shiflett?
Yes, thank you, Chair Cross. I'd like to address the concern that was brought up at our last meeting during public comments, and maybe even address some information that's circulating on social media in regards to our reading curriculum, CKLA. So our school board followed its policy to adopt a science of reading curriculum this past spring, and that is part of the Virginia Literacy Act. We are required to have a science of reading curriculum. And CKLA was one of the 5 approved by the Department of Education, and that is the one that we selected. We appointed a committee. The committee reviewed all 5, and this is the one that they felt was the best from what we had to choose from. So as we, the board adopted that curriculum, we began ordering the materials, and as the materials began arriving, there's just, lots of little readers. This is a K-5 program, and teachers begin reviewing all of the materials, not just a small sample or selection. And I began receiving some concerns from teachers, and I reached out and I talked to some school board members, and they were getting some similar concerns. And most of the concerns, not all, but most of them, sort of evolved around the units or the chapters that dealt with teaching world religions. And world religion is not a standard for our elementary students. It is for our world geography students in high school, but not at the elementary school. So I had individual conversations with, I think, most of the board members, maybe not all, and as they were having some concerns from teachers, and I was receiving concerns from teachers about, I'm feeling uncomfortable teaching this. So I reached out to the State Superintendent of Public Instruction for Virginia, Dr. Lisa Coons, and I had a conversation with her and said, the Virginia Literacy Act requires us to use a science of reading curriculum. If we, feel uncomfortable or we don't feel like some portions are appropriate and we remove them, are we going to be out of compliance with the VLA? And she said, absolutely not. She had informed me that other school divisions that she had worked with had done some similar things. So I had talked with our supervisor of English, Mrs. Tate, and also Donna Abernathy, our assistant superintendent, about making changes to our pacing guide, right, and removing any of the chapters that dealt with world religions, all religions, not just some, but we're not going to put teachers in a situation where they feel uncomfortable teaching, some religions. But it wasn't just we're going to teach everything, but, we're going to keep Christianity. No, it's all religions. We're going to pull that out. Now, we understand that there are some portions of the curriculum that mention, the church or perhaps mention a religious group, and we're okay with that, right? We just did not want the chapters or the sections that specifically taught the tenets of how a religion, was formed or about their founders, because, again, that's a personal matter. That's for families to work with their students at home, and when they become ninth graders, we'll teach that in world geography classes. And so that information was sent out in August, and with that information, we said to our teachers, this is a work in progress in terms of the pacing guide. Please do not, chisel this in stone. It may change. I met with elementary principals a couple of weeks ago at their monthly meeting. I said to them, if teachers are concerned about a particular part of the curriculum or something, let's bring it to my attention. We can work with the reading team and make changes that would be necessary. And again, some of the concerns we had really wasn't just all about the world religions. There were some other things too that we thought maybe would not be appropriate for younger students. So that was the sort of the thought process behind that. So I wanted to bring clarity to that. And again, we're still using the curriculum. We're still following the pacing guide and our scope and sequence, but we've made some adjustments when we've discovered some things. When our teachers have discovered things that make them uncomfortable, or they're not sure that they think we should approach that. But we are trying to stay with this curriculum with as much fidelity as possible, because the Virginia Literacy Act does require us to do that. So I just wanted to kind of sort of address the question that came up, and how we have tried to work to hear our concerns of our teachers, right? All of this came from our teachers. So understand, the board members, none of them have this curriculum at home that they're reading through, right? This is teachers who've read something. When I was working at Peakview a few weeks, I had teachers come to me personally and said, hey, I'm not sure about this. I feel a little uncomfortable with this. And so we had to have conversations around it and trying to navigate that. And actually, Dr. Kuhn sent me a host of resources that are OER, Open Education Resources. They're free, that we could use to sort of, if we removed anything, there were actually school divisions who created units that could be used to replace those. So I feel like we're on a good footing with CQLA. As I've been around visiting schools, I've asked teachers, right? I said, what's been your biggest challenge? And most of them will say, the new reading curriculum, right? So I say, well, tell me more. And they'll say, well, it's high expectations for students. It's very rigorous, and it's challenging. I get that. It's time consuming. But as I've also continued my visits to schools, I hear teachers say, well, I'm getting more comfortable with it, and I'm starting to understand it a little bit more, a little better, and trying to use it. I feel better about it. But it was a big change for our teachers, and kudos to them for embracing that. But as I think maybe Dr. Alderfer mentioned earlier, we can teach our students to read, all students, not some students, but all students to read. That will be a huge impact for Rockingham County Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Shipper, for addressing that, because as you all know, everything you read online is not true. And so there are a lot of things that people put out there online saying that the board was involved in removing curriculum that had to do everything except Christianity in the curriculum. And although I'm a pastor and I love Jesus Christ, and these are very foundational molding years of every child in our school, and teaching religion inside them could be, we have different kids with all kinds of different religions inside of our public schools, and that's not the place for them to learn those foundational molding things of faith and religion. That's done at home from the parents, and I think this whole board agrees on that. So we've had some conversations about that, and I'm glad that you brought it up tonight. I'm glad that you addressed that, and don't always believe everything you read online, because as we all know, it's not always true. That's the end of our meeting tonight. We do have reason to go into closed session. Do I hear a motion to go into closed session?
I move that the board enter a closed meeting to discuss and consider the following pursuant to the provisions of Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. A1, personnel, specific public officers, appointees, or employees, including the division superintendent, for the purpose of considering such individuals' assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation. And A2, one or more particular students specifically related to requests regarding compulsory student attendance based on religious beliefs or the inability to benefit from education at the school that would involve disclosure of information contained in a scholastic record concerning a student.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. I'll second that. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say yes. Yes. All opposed say no. Motion passes 5-0. We are now in closed session. Thank you for coming out, and be careful heading home tonight.